Okay, so part 2 of this 8.3, looked at bar charts. Now let's take a look at candlestick charts. Hopefully you kind of took a look at that. So it's a different way to display the data that you might see out there. So if we go take a look at page 480, right, you'll see candlestick charts. Oh. So it looks a little bit like the bar chart we were talking about yesterday, but it's slightly different. So here's a rough diagram of it. It's still a rectangle, right? And you've got a vertical axis to the right-hand side, okay? But now, so the whiskers being left and right, they're top and bottom, okay? So this the top whisker there, that is the high for the day, right? That's right there. And of course, this one down here would be the low. And so here's the part where it might be a little confusing at first, right? The top of the rectangle is either the open or close. Open / close up here for that one and for that. And did anybody read about the candlestick charts? How would you know? It has something to do with the color of it. Right. So back when these used to be in the newspaper, they didn't have color print, right? When you saw this information in the newspaper. So if this thing is black or red, right? That means the stock closed down for the day, okay? It closed lower, so it closed down, all right? And if it's white or green, it means it closed up for the day. And that'll tell you whether your top bottom rectangle is an open or closed, right? So let's say if this thing were green, what would be the top of the rectangle if it were green? It'd be a close, it closed up, see? And the bottom would be the open. If it were red, the top would be the what? No, the open, because it means it closed lower. Okay? So you think about it a little bit, right? You see a couple of them, you start to get used to it. Let's take a look at example 4 then. Now, to the left of example 4, do you see that candlestick chart? For, what is it, about 5 days, September 7th through September 11th. And some of them are green and some of them are red. We know the green means that it closed how? Up, and the red means it closed down. This is number 4. All right, so what's the question here? So to explain the difference between the market action on September 8th as compared to September 9th. Okay, so take a look at the 8th. What color is it? It's green, right? So it's green, which means it did what? Closed up, right? And then on the 9th, what's the color? It's red, so it closed, it went lower. It lost value, right? Closed down. All right? Pretty simple, you say? So, with these, you have to add a color to get the information you need, right? You have to think about what color it is. So let's take a look at the check down here. Check says, interpret a green candlestick that is shown only as a rectangle with no lines. Let me put that over here. I'll make it green. So it has no whiskers at the top or the bottom, does it? What would that mean? What were those whiskers, guys? The daily high and the daily low. So first of all, it's green, so what do you know? How did it close? It closed up, right? So we got that part. So those whiskers at the top and bottom, the daily high and low. And what is the numerical value of each of the whiskers in this diagram? 0, right? They don't up or down at all. So what does that tell you? So the closing price was the daily what? High, right? And the open was the daily low, okay? So the closing price, it was the high, right? And the opening price was the daily low. And opening price was the low. Okay? So the value of those little whiskers for 0. Any questions on that one? All right, so example 5 is still referring back to that same chart. Okay? So let's take a look at example 5. The upper is going to do that to me, of course. What does example 5 ask us to do? What was the approximate difference between the highest price and the lowest price for the week? So let's take a look at the chart for the whole week. What would you say was roughly the highest price at that stock? Yeah. About $39.90, you say? Okay. So the high, hey, Mr. Beardsley. No. Nope. So the high was $39.90. And what would you say the low for the week was? $37.75 maybe? So 37.75. So the difference between the high and low, you should subtract them, right? That's easy enough. So just do 39.90 minus 37.75. And I believe you get $2.15. Easy enough. And what they don't address there is like when the stock value goes up and down during the day or during the week. That's what's known as volatility. Have you ever heard of the term volatility in the market? Maybe somewhere along the line? No? Okay. So volatility is a measure of how far up and down stock values go, right? And volatility is actually a measure of risk. So we can numerically measure risk in the stock market by looking at the volatility. Do you remember doing statistics, some math class, like mean, median, mode, standard deviation? So the standard deviation calculation is a number that will tell you about the risk of a stock, right? If it fluctuates wildly, high, super highs and super lows, right? If you buy that stock, you're taking a risk that it's going to hit one of those really low lows, right? Now, if it has less standard deviation, it doesn't vary that much. And so it's what they consider less risky, okay? And that's something we'll get into a little bit later. I'd like to, probably not as deep as we normally would in a regular course, but whatever. All right. So I'll take a look at the check then for this. Good gravy. Doing this. Get that fixed. What's the check say? Says the lengths of the candlesticks for September 8th and 11th are approximately the same. What would you say about what that means? So the length from the top whisker, stem, or whatever, to the bottom stem. Now they have a different range of numbers, right? Between the 8th and 11th. But what could you say about those 2 days in the trading prices? what, maybe the difference between the daily high and daily low is what? If they have the same height, like no matter where they are. The difference between the daily high and daily low is what? Huh? About the same, right? Yeah, so simple enough. So the difference between high and low about the same. Okay? I think that was the last example there. Yes, it was. All right, so we have a couple of charts that we look at now, right? Regular bar chart, the candlestick chart. Is anybody confused about the candlestick chart? Like how to know whether the top is open or closed? I mean, you got to, like, until you do a few, you got to stop and think about, right? If it's green, is that the opener? You know, okay? So I think that's probably the trickiest one there, but it's not that bad. Right?